We've all felt that sudden, hollow sensation. You look out at a world that feels increasingly chaotic and broken, and you try to imagine how your tiny efforts could possibly matter. In the face of such a massive vacuum, your own power feels non-existent. You feel entirely alone. This sense of isolation is exactly where the story of Pentecost begins. It is grounded in an upper room in Jerusalem, where Jesus and his friends have gathered for Passover, a feast celebrating God's ancient deliverance of the people from bondage. The disciples are in a state of shock. They expected a Messiah who would arrive as a military commander to shatter the Roman occupation. Instead, their leader is washing their feet and speaking about his imminent death. The worldly power they were counting on is vanishing. In the first century, being an orphan meant the total loss of identity and protection. Without a rabbi or a family structure to provide guidance, an individual was left vulnerable to every whim of a predatory empire. Jesus' departure felt like a sentence to this kind of destitution. Before he leaves, Jesus gives them a daunting directive to keep his commandments. He isn't talking about a list of rules. He is calling for an active, concrete love, a commitment to become like the beloved through daily action. The task seems impossible. Jesus is asking a handful of panicked followers to conquer a ruthless empire through radical love, even as they believe they are being abandoned to face that empire alone. But Jesus immediately reframes the situation. He promises that they will not be left as orphans, and they will not have to execute this mission through their own isolated willpower. He introduces the Greek term parakletos. While modern interpretations often treat the Spirit as a vague feeling, the original language describes a specific active partner. A paraclete is a fierce advocate, an encourager who stands at your side, reminding the heart of what matters. This diagram illustrates the bridge between choices and God's presence. Rather than a transaction where following rules earns affection, these actions are a single movement. Morality stops being a checklist and becomes an embodiment. You carry the spirit of the rules within daily relationships. This means human effort is intended to be a partnership. We aren't meant to struggle toward goodness under our own power. We are designed to be inhabited and impelled by this constant advocacy. Consider how this looked for a congregation in Birmingham, Alabama. They felt called to build a new shelter for homeless women and children, a project that required raising $2.5 million. At the time, the church was broke. They were already facing a massive budget deficit, and the sheer scale of the construction project seemed like a certain path to failure. The physical effort was intense. 3 church members, including a retired gas corporation president in a 3-piece suit, spent their days pitching to every major foundation and business leader in the city. While 2 members handled the presentation, the retired executive sat in the boardroom in silence. He wasn't passive. He spent every moment of those meetings praying for the Holy Spirit to advocate for the women they were trying to serve. The shelter was built and remains in operation decades later. Its success relied on a refusal to draw a line between physical labor and spiritual conviction. The team acted on the belief that concrete care requires both human tenacity and the advocate's invisible push. The Birmingham project reveals that the Promised Land functions as a sacred relationship built in the present, rather than a physical destination won through effort. This reflects the advocate's reality in John's Gospel. The Greek word for in and among is the same. The Spirit dwells inside us and simultaneously between us. This dual nature lets us create dwelling places anywhere, transforming even a damp basement into a land of promise. Every Christmas morning, that Birmingham shelter holds a communion service. Wealthy city leaders and destitute guests sit together, sometimes wearing ribbons from their gift wrapping. They share a moment where traditional social hierarchies disappear. In that fragrant, crowded room, the boundaries of power collapse. By acknowledging their shared vulnerability, they experience the presence of the advocate, and for that moment, no one is an orphan. This presence often manifests as a simple internal nudge. At a wedding reception years ago, a man in a wheelchair, a former professional dancer paralyzed in a crash, struggled to push his chair onto the raised dance floor. Most guests looked away, unsure of how to help. A young woman at a nearby table felt a sudden, inexplicable urge to act. She stood up, walked over and asked him to dance. They wove across the floor together for several songs. Afterward, the man expressed his immense gratitude, but the woman couldn't rationally explain her choice. She simply said that something inside of her just had to dance with that man. That internal demand is the paraclete. It is the advocate impelling us to love lovingly, to move past our own apprehension and connect with the needs of another person. Love, as Jesus defines it, is a fierce and concrete action. When we step into the unknown to help another, we find the advocate waiting to join us, ensuring that isolation is never the final word.